King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Let's go with episode 594 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. KLP here with you. And if you look at the website, wrestlingisreal.com, I wasn't content with the logo I had made late last year preparing for the program, so I decided to go ahead and make it even bolder and brighter. So you'll see a new logo now, most likely when you go and look for it wherever you find the podcast. If it hasn't been updated yet, decide to change it. You let me know if you like it or not, but I want to just freshen it up. Something bolder, something bigger, because that's just the way it's just the way I like my stuff, right? So that's what I did. Change it up. What can I say? There is a lot of stuff they're going to talk about. Now, we could go into a lot of different directions. AEW is going to get talked about tonight because they are 2 weeks away from Revolution, and the Dynamite episode just got done. Had a lot going on tonight. Plus, there's a couple things going on with NXT and some of the changes that WWE is doing right now in terms of adding new people to the Performance Center and who they've decided to go ahead and bring towards the main event. We're going to talk all about that here on the program tonight. And again, there's a number of names they're bringing in to the Performance Center that are very interesting. And we'll talk about that in a few moments. But we got to talk about Paul Wight. Okay, so it's official. As we know, it's the Big Show. For those of you that might not have watched long enough to remember the entire Monday Night Wars, you know, the Monday Night Wars, for many of you, you might remember for the most part, the Big Show did make its way in to WWE as one of the first defections away from WCW. Decided to go ahead and leave and go to greener pastures in WWE or WWF at the time. And, you know, we know the whole story about Big Show's long heralded career in the company, depending on how you've criticized it or if you've liked it, however you feel about it. But it still comes down to the fact that he did make it in. And, you know, before that, he was like the second coming of Andre the Giant. Hulk Hogan had a whole lot behind him in the mid-90s, trying to go and build him up. And at this point in his career, didn't know he was going to decide to go make a change. But again, Paul Wight, I don't think, you know, he could have went ahead and, you know, is there any people feeling like there's a bit of a loss because if he lost a loyalty to the company? I don't know about that. But again, you know, it's what you're doing with him. Paul Wight's been doing other things besides. Like, he did have a Netflix show he's been doing, and they haven't been using him. And he's gotten himself into really good shape. Yeah, he might not be used as much, and obviously the way they use him is not in a proper context. We saw what Legends Night looked like, and we're going to talk about why Paul Wight decided to go ahead and leave. So the Big Show has left WWE. He is now joining All Elite Wrestling. So the deal is, I'm taking this from Variety.com, that he signed a long-term deal, and he will not only wrestle, but he will also serve as commentator on AEW's newest show, AEW Dark Elevation. And the show will air Mondays at 7 p.m. on AEW's YouTube channel. So White commented about the new promotion, saying it's been amazing to watch what AEW has built in just a couple of years. AEW Dark is an incredible platform to hone the skills of up-and-coming wrestlers, but I also love that established AEW talent can build out their personalities and showcase themselves in new ways on Dark. It's no exaggeration that when they say AEW is boundless. So, further announcements around this signing include identity of his commentary partner, which will be announced on AEW Dynamite, which we now know as Tony Schiavone. So, Schiavone and Paul Wight doing AEW Dark Elevation. This is interesting. So I try to figure out what that means about the original Dark and what that means for Dark Elevation, how to distinguish both. So I'm just not sure what to think of that, but okay. So as we know, Paul Wight officially debuted professionally in WCW very early on in his career in 1995, quickly winning the world title from Hulk Hogan. And again, he joined WWE in 1999, one of the most well-known stars, two-time WWE champion, five-time World Tag Team champion with various partners, including The Miz, Chris Jericho, among others, and a one-time Intercontinental champion, among other several title wins. Tony Khan said that Paul Wight is one of the most recognizable and impressive professional athletes in the world, and he wanted to come to AEW because he believes that we're the best promotion of wrestling, and we believe that he has a lot to offer us, both in the ring as a wrestler and also outside the ring as a commentator, host, and ambassador for AEW. He's one of the most experienced stars in all of wrestling, eager to work for a diverse roster. He can benefit and guide our young talent with men's mentorship, and his expert commentary on AEW Dark Elevation will educate and entertain our fans and also educate the younger wrestlers on the roster. And Paul enters AEW as a licensed wrestler. He's very much looking forward to studying our talent firsthand for the commentary desk and preparation for his return to the ring. You know, the thing is that everyone wants to go ahead and really bury down AEW with what they do with WWE stars. And yeah, they have a handful of them. Don't get me wrong. But really, who are the ones from WWE that are really the big, standouts that are, hogging up the time on TV? Jericho. But think about it like this. This is unlike what Hulk Hogan did or the other stars in WCW did back in the day, or how Vince would control things in WWE now. Okay? You're seeing all the older stars. They're all working with young talent. They are mentoring, they're shaping, which is what I always thought needed to be done on the main roster of WWE as well. Which is why, if you see in some cases where, okay, Paul, I feel like it's like this. Paul Heyman working with Roman Reigns, that instantly offers another level to the Roman Reigns character, especially the whole head of the table. Like, I don't think you could do the whole thing along without having Paul Heyman in there, who just absolutely, immediately put the heel heat on to Roman Reigns. And then Roman Reigns, this whole gimmick, which I'm sure Paul had to have some kind of hands on, has been such a well done gimmick. And the match leading up to him and Edge will no doubt be a very great match for WrestleMania coming up in April. So I feel really good that we now have a plan that Edge and Roman Reigns are going to be the match. Let it be, and let it be Roman Reigns that wins in a very strong, really well done matchup. Just see what we do. That's how I would really like to go and see. Instead of having part-timer Edge go ahead and take the belt after that. I don't want Roman Reigns to lose the belt. Not right now, not at all. Not for a while. Just from my opinion. Now, in AEW, seeing Tully Blanchard, okay, he's going to wrestle next week. But again, 6-man tag, working with the FTR. FTR has been built up very well. The Revival's been done a very good solid, being put up as a tag team here and not being overexposed. That's the other thing most important. Most of these stars are not overexposed. Cody Rhodes, he's really just kind of building some of the talent he wants to work on, whether it's Lee Johnson or he wants to work off of, we was working with Darby Allin for a while. And, he just has his particulars. I mean, when he was doing the TNT title, very willing to give great matches with some of the stars he was with and had good matches when he was TNT champion. And, now this build-up with Shaq, it's something there where, Cody's kind of doing some cross-promotion. Shaq's doing cross-promotion. I'm not worried too much about what the match is going to be about, what they're going to do up this weekend or next week of the Crossroads of Dynamite next week. It's what it is. I mean, it's interesting for television. I'm glad it's not going to be putting on pay-per-view, which I'm glad to see that. But then you look at the rest, okay? Jake St. Roberts with, the Murder Hawk Monster, Lance Archer. Love that. Taz, working with Team Taz. Just, you're seeing Sting with Darby Allin. I think the Sting Darby Allin thing is kicking. It's clicking right now. I like what Sting did tonight when he went out there and he was kind of showing some moves out there, kind of, getting the attack back. And he got powerbombed by Brian Cage. I love it. Seeing the Stinger Splash. That's fine. And again, no overexposure, no overuse, not having to try to him to go and make the match where he has to be the main eventer. No, it's all these guys kind of working to elevate and to associate themselves and bring some of their legendary status and channel it into some of these other stars. Chris Jericho and MJF is also an absolutely critical. And then whatever is going to happen with Sammy Guevara has to be considered as well. Because here, Chris Jericho working the faction definitely works that way. Now, the ones that are not doing that at all, it's Omega and Moxley, which the main event. And that's just a standalone. That's just, wow. That's another story in itself. But like I said, the level of mentorship and all that's going on here, what does Big Show add to the picture? Well, we always did know the Big Show actually was pretty good on commentary. He was good, even just doing the panels. He was really good at it. So it's not like he doesn't get the gab. He can talk. And for him to go and be brought into this role, something that he probably wanted to do before, but was never going to be allowed to, or had to do is listen to what Mick Foley told him about having to work that kind of level. Or even what Samoa Joe has to do right now. Think about it. So the commentary in this relaxed environment must sound like it's going to be pretty good for him. And on top of that, he's going to work with Tony Schiavone. Come on, Schiavone and Paul Wight. I'm going to watch Dark Elevation now. You got me. I mean, I don't get to watch enough Dark, I'll admit, and it's something I should be watching more of because I know it's really beneficial because there's a lot of matches they're putting on there. It's just a long show they put on, but again, it's so much opportunity to see so much talent being brought on board. Sure, there's squash matches in some cases, but they're kind of glorified, and they actually are giving some opportunities to see who might click with the audience and who doesn't. And there's a number of stars that you see that we're going to bring them on board. So that's where the Varsity Blondes came in. That's where Powerhouse Hobbs comes in. That's where Anna Jay comes in. Things like that. So you're seeing some stars that are going to be eventually be brought up to the main roster, see what they can do. And some of the others are just getting a chance to continue to work, whether it's TH2 or it's Joey Janela, Sonny Kiss, and, Sean Spears, whatever. So that's what they're doing. And again, Tony Khan talks about a diverse roster. Absolutely. But again, there's a whole lot of experience right here. This is working. This is really, they're teaching on the fly. And the other thing, too, is there's no road shows right now. So it's all these stars coming in and saying, hey, we're going to work with you on this. And we're going to work with you on, getting your skills together, promos, whatever kind of things that he can offer. Again, I don't know what Paul Wight will be able to offer in terms of what he's going to be able to do. Again, the commentary sounds really good. And, if he gets to give some tools and tricks backstage to the guys in the locker room, great. All that kind of respect kind of stuff, that's good. I can appreciate all that they're going to be planning to do. That's all fine. For some people, the story is they feel like it's a betrayal. Okay, sure. What do you want him to do? He's a money guy just like anybody else. If you remember in WCW, he left WCW to get more money. And he did. He's a businessman. So, and just like anybody else, it's where the opportunities are. Not just maybe the money so much, but the opportunities that he could do more things over there in AEW probably sounded more interesting to him, and that's why he decided to go. So that's fine. And listen, he decided to go for it. I can't knock him for trying to go with that. And one of the stories that really tells you everything about what's going on with Paul Wight and why he decided to go, we're learning more stories about that. PW Insider decided to go ahead and give us some information insight on that. Let's talk about that. So the report is that Wight was very open about his unhappiness the way he was booked at last month's Raw Legends Night show. Used in a backstage segment where he was berated by Randy Orton, and during the segment, Orton claimed that the Big Show's career ended after previously taking a punt kick to the head. And that WWE might have been preparing for Wight's exit because his contract expired a few days later, and after both sides were unable to agree on a new deal, there was no mention by WWE, but they did move into the alumni section on February 19th. Here's a little fun fact I didn't realize, that WWE did have a chance to sign him back in 1995 after referee Mike Chioda brought him up to Pat Patterson, but a miscommunication led to Vince McMahon missing out on him. And it wasn't until February 1999 where he brought him in as top guy in a feud against Stone Cold Steve Austin. And they make the point here, he won multiple world titles. His run were start and stop pushes. He was constantly, of course, we always talk about the Big Show turning face and turning heel anytime. Just constantly always flipped. One of his most notable matches being against Floyd Mayweather in a boxer versus wrestler match at WrestleMania 24. And people talked about it, man. Like I said, DMC, Variety, all picking up the story. Incredible. And we'll see how it works out. It's interesting that he, this is what happened to him. And again, the company was just ready to go. And it's like, well, it's what have you done for me lately? And that's what he decided to do. So it makes sense. Now, again, he's not being brought on television yet. We don't know what the new TV show that's going to be on TNT is coming up yet. If it's on TBS, we don't know the whole story about that yet. But we're waiting on that now. And then we'll find out what's going to go on with that. So there's that I wanted to go and bring up. Now, I'll get into AEW in a few more minutes. because we're going to have to talk about Revolution. But one of the things I want to talk about, there was a couple of things I want to bring up with the WWE right now before we get into AEW. So we're going to table AEW and Evolution. There should be Revolution talk until a little bit later. We'll talk about that. But we talk about what the companies do to build up among their main roster, especially with WrestleMania time, and what they need to do to build up in the future. Now, there's a lot of things that are going on here that the company's struggling with. We know that. And, you know, they are doing things on NXT, which is where we always have to go and look and see what they're going to be doing with NXT going forward to try to build things up. Right? Like, they need to go and do something to try to get some importance going on and really try to make it where, you know, people feel excited about the company again. Because right now, there's a staleness among the roster. Those companies obviously made some mistakes on some of their stars. For whatever reason, Keith Lee is now AWOL. We don't know what happened to him after he was originally scheduled to be in the triple threat for the U.S. title match at Elimination Chamber. We've not heard anything from him. Nothing since. As for Riddle, he's U.S. champion now. Out of nowhere. Okay. I mean, it's considerable that he's going to get the chance to go and run with his belt. What will that mean for him? But usually when somebody gets that mid-card title, that could mean next to nothing. You know, it really depends. But it's a status symbol for him that, hey, you know, the company signed him to a new contract. I'm guessing that's why they gave him the belt. And maybe there's something more to this gimmick that will really build up Riddle's character to be something more. Now, I must admit that even when I saw Riddle coming out of NXT, it was very one-dimensional. The bro thing could go so far. So I really do feel like, and maybe not people really feel that way, but I think the way they're expanding the bro vernacular and trying to expand the character, that is something they're actually trying to do. Believe it or not, I really feel like they're trying to do something with Riddle to kind of build that out. Maybe there's something more to the character they can keep as the original bro, and where they can work with him on that and make him stand out. So it's going to be a work in progress. I think the idea of what they were going to do with Lacey Evans before this pregnancy angle, I don't know if it's an angle or if it's a shoot or not. We don't know if it's a work or shoot. But I'm guessing she's out because then Ric Flair and Charlotte Flair kind of made their amends on how they're handling things. But originally, Lacey Evans looked like she was going to be a project of which Ric Flair was going to go ahead and help to change out the sassy Southern Belle, and we were going to see something else of this character. Okay, there was another person being looked at. And then looking at some of the original stars and trying to build them back up. You know, whether it was Sheamus trying to get a little bit of heat back on him, will there be a deal where him and Drew McIntyre become a feud that comes back up, and that's what is the focus right now for a while? Something, maybe up to Fastlane, while Bobby Lashley has been injected into the main event right now because the main event story on Raw has been shooken up. And now that you no longer have the belt on a impenetrable Drew McIntyre, right? This is what I actually thought about after Elimination Chamber. Again, Drew McIntyre was built to almost Brock Lesnar status. Unbeatable. The only person who was able to beat him for the bulk of his run was Randy Orton, and that was it. Otherwise, Drew McIntyre wasn't losing to anybody, right? Now, he wouldn't get beat down and all that, but again, when it came to matches, he never lost. And for The Miz to come away and use the belt, again, it's just like what Seth Rollins did. Do we think Seth Rollins was actually entitled to go ahead and be champion at the point? No. When he took the belt off of Brock Lesnar? No, but again, in the situation, it's what happened. And he had the Money in the Bank briefcase. Here you go, worked out. Miz in the same form, 3 times champion. Back once again with the belt. Listen, that's fine. I get it. Now, with the Miz, transitional champion, and do we see Bobby Lashley now, who's been brought up into the mix because of how they built the storyline that Bobby Lashley helped out the Miz, getting Drew McIntyre brought down so that Miz could go ahead and cash in inadvertently to do that Elimination Chamber. Got it. So Bobby Lashley the deadline, the moratorium, the ultimatum, right? We get the match next week. I don't know if they're going to do a Dairy Queen finish, if they're going to DQ it. But Bobby Lashley and a clean finish over The Miz, and The Miz only gets, what, a 2-week reign? Yeah. Transitional champion. Sure. It's the way to get the belt off of Drew and keep Drew strong, because now Drew is kept very strong. We know that. So that was the plan there. Okay, I'm getting that logic. Got it. Bobby Lashley as champion is totally fine with me. And remember, what I've talked about in the last couple of weeks, Bobby Lashley is just doing what he did in Impact Wrestling. He's now the character he was in Impact Wrestling. It's as if it took 4 years for this company to realize the star power this guy had originally that they had back in 2006. It's like, okay, they're not going to say it, but they're basically like having Lashley go out as this diabolical kind of monster type, tearing up everybody. And there you go. Once again, Bobby Lashley is this beast. He's out there. And again, they built him strong as hell. They let Braun Strowman be, cannon fodder for Bobby Lashley. And Bobby Lashley, tore him up. He looked good. Great. Excellent. And now here you are. Now you got Bobby Lashley ready to go ahead and go for the WWE title. Great. Take it off The Miz. And do we have Drew McIntyre coming to the mix? You know what I could also see happening too? Kid you not. I could also see this company doing a 3-way. We haven't seen a 3-way for the world title, for the main title in a long time at a WrestleMania. I could see them doing Lashley, McIntyre, and Sheamus gets brought into the mix. I can see all that being brought in so we can have that one match. I don't know if they'll do a one-on-one. I think they can absolutely do a triple threat. They can totally do a triple threat. I think that's what they might do with the Raw title. So keep that in mind. Nobody's saying that yet, but I think that's where they might go. Because they're going to need to give Sheamus something to do after all the time they built him up. So they can do that. And they can put that together. And then they could have, and then who knows what they'll do next. But again, there's that side. I can see that being the triple threat right there. And then Asuka and Charlotte Flair. Yeah. Then you have that for the Raw Women's title. Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair. See? The card could build itself pretty much. And, you could still do Miz and Bad Bunny or whatever. And, you could do Miz and Morrison versus Bad Bunny and Damian Priest. I don't know. You could do something like that. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, you could do all this kind of thing, and then you're building matches. And here you go. You're building a couple nights of matches. You could absolutely do that. So, that gives me a little more ease. But again, getting back to my original point about who they need to go and build up that can be part of the series. Again, we're talking about a lot of people that have been kind of retreaded. Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Sheamus, they've been retreaded. Asuka and Charlotte Flair, we've seen a lot of. And, really, like the fresh feuds are like Edge coming back, and now he's going to go after Roman Reigns, go after his first world title, and it's been years. And then Sasha Banks, the established, the boss, taking on the understudy, basically. It's like almost like a Broadway play. You got the star and the understudy, and now the understudy is Bianca Belair, and you're going to have that match. Like the freshness, the youth, some of the fresh feeling of the storylines, it goes over there to SmackDown. We know that. Raw's not so much. But again, it's like that's what I feel like. Raw feels like a little bit of retreads, a little bit of misfits. We know that the women's division, the women's tag team division is rough, and the tag team divisions on both sides are pretty rough too. So that's where we are. But you can't fix everything, and it's almost to me where like the tag team divisions they're just in a tough spot. I don't know what they're going to do to kind of build those back up, but there's a lot to be missed right there. Now, what's being done about it? Again, there's not a whole lot of stars they're trying to build up. Damian Priest is a project in progress. We see that the Bad Bunny Association, I think it's helping him. I really do. Again, we've seen stars that have come on up and they've just been destroyed. Aleister Black, Ricochet, Angel Mendoza, Andrade. Like, these are all people that were like kind of built up to a certain point. Humberto Carrillo, all these people that were being brought up to the front. Might have been NXT stars, might have been somebody big important. Keith Lee, same thing. And you know what? Just kind of shut down. Okay, here's your spot. Let's give you a little something. We're going to take it away from you. Give you a little bit of the ball to run with and just take it right away. Because, again, if Vince doesn't like it, he doesn't feel anything about it, then they're out. So it's the old man. You feel like he still has kind of the idea of where he wants to go with the company and where he wants to go with the creative. And until he's, removed from that spot, there's nothing else you could do about it. And Hunter, to his credit, is bringing some stars on. Now, I got to tell you, and that's the one thing that happens. That obviously, with Hunter not being able to do as much as he can, he is trying to do things where he can when it comes to NXT. Again, I am justifying everything, and I'm starting to make sense of what they're trying to do. I know I've been so critical, but I got to turn this back around and realize what they're doing. Now, when it comes to NXT, what they have to do, they're not allowed to be developmental. Now I realize that. It's really come down to the point that, you have to be able to offer a little bit of something where you're offering some stars that are being built up to the front. And obviously, the company's not afraid of taking stars that are within NXT and then just moving around on up. If they've already had a couple of takeovers under their belt, Rhea Ripley's on her way over, and she can make a lot of big difference. Shayna Baszler didn't. It's unfortunate. But Shayna Baszler, you get her out of that tag team thing right now with Nia Jax, and I'll tell you, there's a whole lot you could do with her. Like, when you get Rhea Ripley coming in, Shayna Baszler should be one of the first opponents she takes on. Just saying. And give her a chance to be a single star again in a serious feud. Not this goof stuff with Nia Jax. Come on. My hole. So as for NXT, now they obviously, when it comes to what Raw's doing right now and SmackDown's doing, the women's stars, there's always a lot of new stars that can come in and be brought into play, right? There's obviously, they have a whole lot of shaking up right now of who they feel like are some important players within NXT that could be really important moving their way up. Maybe they think that it could be Candice LeRae or Shotzi Blackheart, or now Xia Li, or think about it. There's others, Mercedes Martinez, Raquel Gonzalez. There's obviously stars they had from the takeover Vengeance Day that they felt like, okay, that, and then just some other stars they're bringing on board that could really make a big difference. But the other thing they're doing as well, and obviously as always do, this company is never afraid of trying to go after free agents of who they can go after. And what's funny is that they're going after stars that are, the acquisitions now from free agents, it's not so much what it was back in the day of pillaging Ring of Honor, because Ring of Honor doesn't have any more. WWE went ahead and did that. What they're doing now is they're now looking at Impact Wrestling. And they're looking at some of the NWA roster talent that they have not been able to grab. Because with Billy Corgan, at least, even though he's had not a lot to be able to do with NWA, he has all these stars, and they're still getting to work somewhere. Thunder Rosa's been doing pretty good. I guess she's still working in Mexico and still doing MMA, and she's having her time in AEW, and she's fantastic in AEW, right? You see Ricky Starks making his way over to AEW, and he's very entrenched around the Team Taz, right? And then Impact Wrestling, we've seen stars that have made the way over, and Impact Wrestling, WWE right now, they're looking at NXT stars that are coming from there. MSK, latest example. About Cameron Grimes, right? There are stars. They obviously see what Don Callis and Scott D'Amore are doing in Impact Wrestling, and somebody was watching those shows, and they saw some of that talent. And the same thing with NWA. You're seeing the same thing here, right? Therefore, there were stars they saw from Impact Wrestling. Let's go and bring them over. Robert Stone, formerly Robbie E., right? And now they are bringing some more stars in from from Impact Wrestling once again. It's interesting. And also some generational talent that just has not just generational talent, but there's a lot of things going on right now in terms of their signing. So there are new sign-ups, new pickups now, signings of the biggest recruiting class in company history at the Performance Center. Now, the fact they got the largest recruiting class tells you that they're looking at a lot of different prospects now that they need to hope will pan out because of mistakes that were done with the previous Performance Center pickups they had before. Just saying. And of course, they have lots of people they bring on over to try to make them work. And has it happened? We have to talk about that. I never make much of a point about what they've been doing in terms of who they brought on board and who they decided to bring on board. We've seen some stars that have been brought on as of late, and, it was interesting of who they brought on previously. And we can go back and look what they've been doing right now in terms of bringing in new stars back in the day. Because there's a lot of stars they brought on board that are very interesting. Just got to say that. So previously we had the pandemic types that were coming in as they brought on before. So I should go back actually to October 7th. So last time we had some recruiters that were brought on board, and we mentioned there were some stars they brought on that were, we see some that are always prospects that are just diamonds in the rough that they feel like from whatever every part of the sporting world they can see who they can bring on. So far NXT's they're really looking good. They're really filling a lot with Leon Ruff. They've already turned him heel. He's gotten a chance to already become champion so far, North American champion, obviously, or cruiserweight champion. So they feel a whole lot behind him. That wasn't the last run they had before. And, there's others they saw. Obviously some of the Evolve talent, not just Leon Ruff, but Brandy Lauren, they brought on in as well. And there are others they've seen from Evolve and other places. They thought, well, let's go and bring them on board and let's see what happens. Let's bring them on board. So here's what we got in the new crop of the new Performance Center signees. Among the names is the son of Rick Steiner. Yes, not Scott Steiner, Rick, the crazier one, the Mad Dog, right? So, Bronson Rechsteiner. I think the name sounds fantastic. See, he was an All-American running back at Kennesaw State University, and again, it's Rick Steiner's son, and he looks like a beast. The guy looks massive. I'm really curious to see what they do with him. Another couple of notable names they bring on. A couple of Impact Wrestling stars. Kira Magdalene Forrester. I didn't even know that was her real name. We all know her as former Impact Wrestling and Lucha Underground star and AAA star Taya Valkyrie. And she, as I've said many times on this show, she has won me over. Because I wasn't sure. When I saw her in Lucha Underground with one story, doing the whole Slam Town, the LA Underground kind of thing with John Morrison. But honestly, in Impact Wrestling, she has just shined among everything else. And a great story, great character, great development. And just, I love the character. I love her wrestling. I think she's awesome. She's in her prime. And it was, again, in the same, really, in my opinion, when Tessa Blanchard was actually still champion of the Impact Wrestling in the, when she was world champion or she was knockouts champion, Taya Valkyrie was right there. And Taya Valkyrie, they even try to go and tease the idea of having her be up right there with the men, competing for the world title. Taya Valkyrie is that damn good. And she should make immediate inroads in NXT right away. There is nothing that tells me she can't excel. If this company doesn't do right by her, I don't know what to tell you. But Impact Wrestling did very well by her. Even finished up the storyline with Johnny Bravo. Hey, it wasn't the biggest, most outlandish thing, but they gave it a lot of time. The Johnny Bravo storyline. But again, it worked out. And she was great. And her working with Rosemary, I thought they were awesome together. And really, for Taya Valkyrie, she just did everything she could have possibly done in that company. That's all there is to it. So for right now, yeah, for her to go and move on makes sense, and best of luck to her. And she gets to go ahead and work now with her hubby. So John Morrison obviously going to be happy to know his wife is working with her over there. They don't need to work together. That's the other thing too. Like, even though they're really cool together, like if you want to do something down the line where John Morrison breaks off and Miz breaks off as well, sure. I mean, I could see something where, well, no, they couldn't do that. But with Taya Valkyrie, I could see where, they don't need to go in company with John Morrison, not anytime soon. I don't think they ever have to do that. Taya Valkyrie stands alone. Now, will she still be La Güera Loca? Oh, man. I don't know. That's another thing that's unfortunate for her. She's not going to get to work the Mexico crowds like she used to, of which she was excelling as well in AAA. Another one we all see right now that he was introduced at Vengeance Day is Shawn Ricker, best known as Impact Wrestling star Eli Drake. So now he is L.A. Knight. Let me talk to you. Look, he's great. He's a very good much talker, and when it comes to this wrestling, he's a solid wrestler in the ring. I don't know what they're going to think much more of what they'll do with him, but again, Shawn Rickard has a lot to be added on when it comes to NXT. It's a fresh new star. Him and adding Taya Valkyrie to the mix will definitely bring some polished NXT, which they already have. But again, at some point, there's going to be some stars they have in NXT that's already been there and they've been used for so long. You have to know who you can just call up and just say, okay, after WrestleMania, we need to get some stars back up. We got to refresh the rosters. We have to, make good for the mistakes that we made in the last year or so of how creative has gone downhill and what we've done wrong with some of the wrestlers we brought on board. Or as long as Vince keeps, shooting down people, they're just going to have to keep filling up the reserves and keep trying to find stars that hopefully Vince will like. And keep going through the filter. What else are you going to do? One of the other names I saw that was very important was Parker Parker Boudreaux, former offensive lineman for the University of Central Florida. He's a Brock Lesnar lookalike. Like he's a young Brock Lesnar. The guy just stacked. Crew cut, blonde hair. Guy who looks massive. He's also a friend of Paul Heyman. How about that? And there's some others that got out here as well. The other one I also noticed was very notable for me was Priscilla Kelly, formerly was attached to Jimmy Havoc, and also was working, did some work in NWA, or was really working with NWA in the work that we're doing with the, what was that promotion out there in LA, I guess, for a while. But Priscilla Kelly, we saw quite a bit in MLW, and she's worked in other promotions. She's been, quite extensive on the independent circuit. I like her. Now she's known as Gigi Dolan. Still keeping the orange hair. I like her. I thought seeing her on NWA Shockwave, a couple of matches she had over there, especially the ones she had for the NWA Women's Championship against Thunder Rosa. I thought Priscilla Kelly was fantastic. And did she also take on Serena Deeb? I forget. But Priscilla Kelly was great. She can sell, and she does very good in the ring. She's quite good. I like her. So it's good to see her here in this role. Let's see how she does. And there's a different look. We'll see how that works out. Now, other than that, there are others that have already had some other, they've either worked in Shine, or they worked in Women's Wrestling Revolution, or they worked in PWG or GCW or other places. So they got other people they brought on board that were not absolutely completely green and new. There was quite a bit of indie talent, but again, there's some notable talent that I saw right there that I think people should show and keep their eyes out for. Just saying. In the meantime, NXT is moving on with what they're doing. They're trying to go and keep things going and interesting about what's going on. They did a big storyline angle in the last couple weeks where Adam Cole addressed why he attacked Kyle O'Reilly on last week's show, and that O'Reilly failed after getting numerous opportunities to win the NXT title. Cole said he hates what he had to become in recent weeks and hates himself for what he did to O'Reilly. it was time to break that up. If they weren't going to bring him on board, sure. Adam Cole, I still think you could. There's a chance to bring him up. I don't know what you'll do with him, how he'll do if he moves to the main roster, because obviously his size is a factor, but the guy can talk and he can wrestle around everybody. Just saying. But again, there's only some room for only certain stars to take that Daniel Bryan type spot, right? And you see where Chad Gable's trying to fit that spot. Ricochet's trying to fill that spot. AJ Styles is kind of like that same realm, but AJ Styles is still a bit bigger wrestler. But again, it's just certain stars that are working, that are the work rate. And we know Adam Cole could do the work rate among with the guys he was already working with. So Roderick Strong came out, and then Roderick Strong, also did his damage to Adam, or got his comeuppance by Adam Cole. So decided to go ahead and, break it all up. Undisputed Era is ended. So the dispute with Undisputed Era is done, so that breaks that up. Now, will that mean that anybody will be moved along after this? I don't know. But they need some changes. Corey Graves agrees with me. He actually was on his After the Bell podcast and spoke with Finn Balor as his guest. And Graves went ahead and said this. Here's the thing. So you had some time filling with the Dusty Rhodes Classic on the men's and women's side of the tag team tournament, which is great. Okay. So here's what's going on here. Graves said, quote, I got to work so closely with Dusty Rhodes and so many megastars on our roster now. We'll credit Dusty with helping them figure out who they are. He was very character focused. He could care less about how many wrestling moves you knew. He wanted to know what makes you tick because he could find the smallest little thing about you and blow it up and make it a persona, personality, and help people figure out how they are in the wrestling world. Who they are. And that's one of the things I noticed about TakeOver. There's a wealth of talent we have, arguably the best wrestlers in the world. And NXT, the matches start to finish, unbelievable. Having a hard time, though, with a few exceptions, knowing who these people are. What makes them tick? Why are they the way they are? MSK, for example, yeah, they were spectacular to watch. They did some mind-blowing stuff. They're obviously great athletes. But what makes them important to me, the viewer? Impact Wrestling, that's when they had the Radicals. You had a gimmick to go along with the skills. So the Radicals actually meant something. And worked with a lot of different talent throughout. Just saying. Visually speaking, Shotzi Blackheart stands out. I don't know what makes her tick or why the way she is, but she stands out. She has a very discernible personality. This isn't a shot at anybody. This is just what I want to see more of. I would like to know why these people are the way they are. Or the way that they are. What makes them stand out for reasons other than being great at pro wrestling? I think, and this goes across the board, by the way. He's absolutely right about NXT. I think NXT could use a little injection of personality as far as to stand out. Everybody has metal music. Everybody wears trunks and kick pads. Everybody's in great shape. Why does one differ from the other? And you can actually say the same thing about the main roster in some cases because of some of the stars they brought over from NXT over. It's absolutely right. He goes along. A lot of people just watch NXT for in-ring acting. And if that's your vibe, if that's your favorite of ice cream, cool, I understand it. I'm just saying, for Corey Graves, the wrestling fan, Corey Graves is absolutely right on a lot of this. He really is. Knowing what I know, and knowing the way my mind works, obviously with Raw and SmackDown that I'm focused on now, I think we need to know who these people are a little bit more. When I compare everything to NXT, I think back to my time there. You know who Bayley was. You know what made Seth Rollins tick. You knew what the Wyatt family were about. Adam Rose, for goodness sake, he was this party animal. It didn't translate, obviously, to major success on Raw or SmackDown, but you knew who these people were. I regularly watch NXT, but I don't study it like I used to. I don't follow every bit of it. So when I sit down and watch TakeOver, I look at it thinking, as a general wrestling fan who may not know who all these people are, in this case it was me, what could they show me to make me care a little bit more and to hook me a little bit deeper? Corey Graves is kind of speaking for all of us by saying that. Depth of character. Added dimensions of character. We don't have any of that right now. It is something that is very lacking and missing. We all agree with that. And so what can be done about it? This is where we saw, again, we talked about new creative people coming in, a new head of creative, or, new person to oversee creative underneath Bruce Prichard, underneath Vince McMahon. Got it. These are the questions that need to be asked. But this is obviously, this is the red herring. Everybody knows this is the question that needs to be answered. This is what fixes the problem, at the least, with what WWE is doing right now. Because then what needs to happen is, among the depth of character, when you have the characters then get to be an extension of themselves, an amplification of themselves, maybe you'll find somebody that will make their way out of the mold to become the next big star. Much like we've talked about the many stars of the Attitude Era that made themselves. That can happen again. And the only difference will be is that this company will then continue to try to go and they need to go and fine-tune those stars and continue to let them be who they want to be on air. And then hopefully, in this new climate, they become viral. Will it translate to viewers? I don't know. But it could translate to a lot of different things. Merchandise. Lots of hits on social media. I mean, they need something to spark over there. And again, it does come down to depth. It just cannot be from face value of how somebody looks. Can't be that either. He's absolutely right. Everybody sounds like metal. It's like the metal music's not even the in thing right now. It's counterculture, sure, but it's not. You got to have some mainstream feel to it. And that doesn't mean every wrestler has to come out the trap music either. No, not at all. But there's got to be something that distinguishes everybody to make them individual. Because remember, the other thing that Corey Graves, I don't know if he was trying to make this point, but I'm going to make this point. I'm going to fall on top of his point and say that how is there any friction or any feuding if you have people that are like-minded, look alike, dig the same music, have the same kind of, talking points when they go out to the ring? Where are the faces? Where are the heels? Where's the friction? I don't like you. I don't like who you are. Like, that's the other thing too. You got to have just a classic face heel thing. The baby face is the baby face, and the heel doesn't like the baby face, and the baby face is going to find its way back up, or way back up. Things like that. And this is what you got to be able to do. You got to be capable of doing that. To me, I feel like it's very easy to go and distinguish who's heel or face on the women's side. And again, I just feel like there's something about the women's side that makes it a little bit different. Because Bayley's been able to go ahead and break up her image. Popular face, got stale, became a heel. She's very good right now. Okay, she is. Sasha Banks has gone through a couple different scenarios, but again, she's strong and she's been great all throughout. Becky Lynch, they were able to transition to her. She became the man, okay. Maybe there was going to be some more to the character, but obviously Becky Lynch as the man was actually getting over more than I actually gave credit, I will admit. And Charlotte Flair, to a certain extent, obviously, the queen thing, but she's got to move on to something else. But again, you see who the heels are and who distinguishes what. Shayna Baszler is a heel, or seeing Asuka as a heel at the time, or seeing Alexa Bliss right now as a heel. It makes sense. I mean, you could distinguish Carmella being a heel. It works. What they're able to go and do to kind of distinguish who's heel, who's faces. I don't like you, this and that. I don't like this about you and this and that. Like, that works. And there's things you're able to go and do with all that, which makes for better stories. Which is why sometimes I feel like the women are much more interesting than the men. And that's what they got to do. They got to figure that out. So anyway, let's move along. We are a couple of weeks away from Revolution on TNT. Or AEW is going to have that coming up March 7th. There's a whole lot of matches going to be coming up for that. We got to talk about that. So far what we have at the moment, there's got a whole lot of matches set up. Man, they are stacked up. So starting off, we now have Cody Rhodes versus Scorpio Sky versus Penta El Cero Miedo versus Lance Archer, and 2 more entrants into a ladder match where the winner wins a shot at the AEW TNT Championship. They're making a big deal of that, and that's quite some stars they have right there getting ready to go for Revolution in a couple of weeks. You also have Miro and Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy, Chucky T. That match is now official. Interesting. We're going to have a Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. This is interesting. Dark Orders. It's going to have 2 teams in there. John Silver and Alex Reynolds. Evil Uno, Stu Grayson. Proud and Powerful will be in the match. Santana Ortiz, The Butcher and the Blade. Private Party will be in the match. Top Flight will be in the match. And Bear Country will be in the match. So there you go. And there's quite a few dark stars I don't know about in there that want to watch that and see what that's all about. We have the AEW Women's Title Eliminator Tournament. So Nyla Rose is in now, and I think is it Nyla Rose and Riho once again? Is that where we are now in that tournament? I forget who's all in there now. But I know some more tournament matches that are left to go, and where they have left right now. So the bracket at the moment, if I look at it, now, here's what we got. Rose will either face Thunder Rosa or Riho next Monday. Riho and Rosa will face off this Sunday in tournament action. And Yuka Sakazaki against Ryo Mizunami will also be happening on the Japanese bracket. So we have to go and wait for the semifinals of those matches. But then again, Hikaru Shida will go on against the tournament winner at AEW Revolution. Money match. Winner gets 100% of losers 2021 first quarter earnings. Hangman Page versus Big Money Matt Hardy. Yeah, the Hangman Page Matt Hardy story has been interesting. It's there, but again, it's, Matt Hardy working with Hangman Page, and Hangman Page still being put in a prominent role somewhere up in the mid card, so it's important. And still having Dark Order also mixed into the storyline as well. So everybody getting something to work on right there. And again, then you look at the matches that are above that, just some solid matches. Again, that ladder match is going to be a big deal. What a build to Chris Jericho and MJF against the Young Bucks. AEW Tag Team Championships. That's been a hell of a storyline. And I can see Chris Jericho and MJF taking the titles off of Young Bucks. Good stuff. The thing with the dad, fantastic. So they're using the dad storyline. Hey, why not? It works. Good build to the street fight. Sting and Darby Allin versus Team Taz. Again, the whole Sting Darby Allin stuff is kicking ass. I love it. Sting grabbing Hook, Taz's son, in the body bag. And Team Taz gets beat down. The comeuppance. Again, conventional, where you see the faces get their comeback on the heels. Now, as you know, if this was WWE, you wouldn't be seeing that. But again, you're making Sting and Darby Allin strong. And then again, building up the heat for this match. One side is up, one side the other way. And then Kenny Omega, John Moxley with a hell of a promo leading up to the exploding barbed wire death match for the AEW World Title. Oof. Good stuff. It's a hell of a pay-per-view coming up in 2 weeks. Good stuff. I like it all. Really, really good stuff. One other thing I want to bring up also, Impact Wrestling had some good stuff going on. Diener against Jake Something. They finally went ahead and kind of squashed that down. Jake Something now is somebody they want to look at. I don't know if we want to keep the name Something on him, but that's what they're going to go with right now. Moose is now, his TNA World Heavyweight title is now an official belt once again with Impact Wrestling, which I thought was interesting. The Trey Miguel, Sami Callihan stuff looks very interesting. And it's interesting where Trey Miguel is left behind here with MSK moving over to NXT. And and this is nothing against MSK, but I always liked Trey Miguel as a standalone. I really did. And maybe he's got a chance to be a big single star here. So work with the likes of Sami Callihan and who knows who else. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. And you could always put Trey Miguel back up with Ace Austin. Those guys will have they have quite a bit of an animosity with each other. Rosemary now with Black Taurus as part of the group with Crazy Steve and Decay. I love that. Brought that back together. And, they're trying to work with some stuff with Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. They're working on some things. So, Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers is now becoming a thing, I guess. That's where they plan to go next. Impact Wrestling's been good to watch. Again, interesting. We don't have any Kenny Omega now at this point. That was already kind of done. So, we're supposed to start seeing more Finn Juice. We see them a little bit backstage this past week. And, eventually we'll get them in somewhere with the Good Brothers. See how that works out. And then Deonna Purrazzo just being brought in this whole tag team thing right now because they don't really have anybody for her to take on now for the Knockouts title. She's just kind of holding on to the belt. There you go. But it's good. Altogether, it's good. A couple of things coming up in the March. Not only will we have Revolution coming up next month, we'll have Fastlane coming up for March 21st. And it's been announced that Ring of Honor will have their 19th anniversary show on March the 26th. And we don't have any matches as of yet, and we don't know anything about that as of yet, but I'll have to keep an eye on that and see what they're going to be doing pretty soon. So we're going to leave it there. Got an hour in on what I was going to go and get into, and good stuff. And we'll keep it on everything else that's going to be going on throughout. Again, I hope you will have gotten a chance to go and take a look at the changes to the website. As again, I changed the logo out, give it a little bit of a fresher look. WrestlingIsReal.com. Again, you know where to find the show and how to go and subscribe. Also, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. A lot of people are finding it right now. Finally got over 100 subscribers. I know. Whoop. But youtube.com/JBRASCO951 because I do a lot of programming over there. I do my Broadcasters podcast, which you can find everything about the media. I always talk about music streaming and streaming of TV, all the movies that are going on. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the media. It might be interesting because you might be kind of interested in. If you want to check it out, again, broadcasterspodcast.com or click on the YouTube feed and you can check it out for yourself there. And then my series When I'm Not Podcasting. So for some of the other shows that are out there, my fellow podcasters that decided to go and talk about other things in wrestling on their shows and let the shows run 2, 3, 4 hours long, I don't do that. See, I decided to go and, concentrate on wrestling on this program. And then I take what I would normally might fill in on the program here and make the show go 3, 4 hours long, which I'm not going to do. I have my series When I'm Not Podcasting, which I do short form episodes, about, 5, 10, 15 minutes long each. Talk about anything that's on my mind that I would talk about normally on the program, that if I wanted to just talk about other things on my mind. I could talk about cannabis. I could talk about Uber and Lyft because I do rideshare. I could talk about radio. I could talk about other things in media. I could talk about music, dating, online dating, stuff like that. Talk about TikTok, talk about influencers, all this different stuff. Like, I got other things on my mind. So if you want to really get to know more about me, then check out When I'm Not Podcasting, because then you'll get to really know what I really enjoy and really get to appreciate listening to. So anyway, I appreciate all of you during this WrestleMania season for listening to the show. I saw people really respond to my episode on Bad Bunny, which, again, I made a good argument, and I think a lot of people really responded to it, so I appreciate that. And we'll leave it there. If you did not catch it, I did a pretty easily comprehensive episode on the Elimination Chamber as a post show. WrestlingIsReal.com. Go ahead and take a look back at the episode. I did put it up there as a recap. You can go check that out for yourselves after you listen to this. But in the meantime, thank you for checking out the show as you always do. So thankful for all of you to go ahead and listen through, even with the commercials and things like that. So thankful for all of you. We'll come back next week. Until then, come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts. and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.